What is up, everyone? So back with another Q&A. I'm just going to go in the order that I received the questions. So a smarter YouTuber would put the most interesting questions at the beginning, but I am not a good YouTuber. So I will just go in order that I received the question. So the first question was just 2 words: more books. I assume this is asking me if I'm going to write more books. I'm going to write a book on hormones, a book on diet, and probably another book on training. I might write a few more books on training, more detailed into specific aspects. I like writing a lot. I mean, if I wrote a book on hormones, it would make me have to learn so much more about hormones. I already know quite a bit, but just going into so more depth would help me learn more. So that's what I like most about writing. It helps me learn, and it also helps other people as well. Next question, top YouTubers. I actually make my subscriptions public. So if I'm following them, they're probably at least useful. It doesn't mean I agree with everything they say, but it means that they're pretty decent, generally speaking. Opinion on Kinobody. He is horrible. Honestly, he is just, probably the most vain person I've ever seen. The most self-centered, self-loving person on earth. And for that reason alone, you shouldn't follow him. Don't give him the gratification of seeing that number in his subscription. So if you're following him and following me, you better make a choice, okay? And if you choose him, you're dead to me. All right, next question. When you started training, what kept you motivated to train and become who you are now? I don't like this question just because it makes it seem like I'm some kind of amazingly accomplished athlete, and I'm certainly not. I have a long way to go on my strength, on my size, on a lot of stuff. So I'm definitely not really satisfied with my progress. For me, I really liked the numbers. I liked how it made me feel. I liked seeing all the numbers go up. I liked seeing, me getting stronger over time. I liked experimenting with new techniques. I liked reading about training. And so I really just enjoyed the entire process. Not even just reaching goals, just everything about it I really, really liked from the start. And I got a pretty late start. I didn't start lifting weights really until I was about 25 years old. I started working out a couple months ago. Any tips? Well, that's pretty general. I would say, again, focus on the process, focus on just learning as much as you can, find good sources. You're subscribed to me, so that might help a little bit. But find other sources as well, and just keep learning, keep experimenting, and find out what works for you, because it's going to be different for every person. If you only had weekends to train, how would you plan your training? Okay, so I don't like this question either. If you can't find the time during the week to buy a pull-up bar, set it up in your house, and do pull-ups, or just get down on the ground and do push-ups a few times per week, you are way too busy, my friend, okay? That might take 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes per day. If you can't spend that very, very infinitesimally small amount of time to better yourself, something is wrong in your life, and you need to change that rather than planning your training only on 2 days per week. Coffee break. All right, next question. Why does fasting make me tired? I've read somewhere that if you wait long enough, it makes you feel better. Yeah, so you're probably just getting low blood sugar, and not everyone responds really well to fasting. Some people need more frequent meals, but I would say over time, you should be able to learn how to fast, and it can bring a lot of benefits. If you are not good at fasting, it probably means that you are somewhat metabolically deficient and you are not processing carbs very well. So if you're type 2 diabetic, fasting is going to be very, very difficult because you are essentially addicted to carbohydrates, and you need to break that addiction in order to feel better. It's like if someone is an alcoholic and you cut out alcohol, yeah, they're going to feel horrible. But if they get through that addiction phase, through that withdrawal, then they'll feel better eventually, but it does take time. And yes, I did just compare carbs to alcohol, and actually metabolically, they're fairly similar. Do you even yeet, bro? I am unfortunately not cool enough to understand that question. Next one, this might be too general, but what are the possible sources of overhead shoulder pain? This is probably weak lower traps, weak rhomboids, weak rotator cuff. You're not upwardly rotating your scapula and keeping an open chest, and thus if your posture is bad, you're going to get some kind of impingement. So work on face pulls, work on strengthening those external rotators, and you should be fine. Although it's worth noting that there are 3 types of shoulder joint, and if you have the type that makes it hard to overhead press, overhead pressing might not be possible for you no matter what. So some people are just genetically screwed in that regard. How do you know which type you are? If you do everything right and you still get pain, you probably have gotten the genetic shaft. Are you doing custom plans for people who don't have access to gyms or gym equipments right now? I guess RN is right now. Yes. My plans are all custom, so they're basically just whatever your situation is. So if you have a gym, great. If you don't have a gym, great. Your plan will just be modified, customized to whatever your personal situation is. Not a question, just want to say how much I enjoy your articles and videos. Big fan from India. Oh, cool, thanks. I'll have to go to India sometime. I have a lot of fans there. You earning from YouTube yet? So yeah, I turned on monetization for about a month, and I made about $80-something. And then I turned it off just because ads were so bad. I'll link my video in the description for why I turned ads off. It just wasn't really worth it. Some of the ads were so bad. What are your hobbies outside of lifting? So, studying Chinese. Right now I'm just working a ton, 80, 90 hours a week, basically. So I don't really have time for a ton of hobbies. I used to study Chinese, not that much anymore. And, it's just part of growing up. You sometimes have to have an unbalanced life where you're working a lot more than you sort of want to and should to be, perfectly healthy. And, it's just part of life, I guess. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, you can't be putting in 40 hours per week. I get in 40 hours by Wednesday, basically. What's a deload week? Should you incorporate them? So I did a whole video on this. I'll link it in the description below. It's basically a short period of easier training to dissipate fatigue. And I would say once you're an intermediate, you should probably be incorporating them into your training. How much muscles can we gain naturally the first year? So it's going to vary based on genetics, your diet, your training, everything. I would say anywhere from 5 kilos to 8 kilos is a pretty reasonable amount. Some people might gain 9 or 10 kilos. I probably gained about 10 kilos in my first year. I went from 68 kilos to 83 kilos in body weight. So I would say, and there wasn't too much fat gain, so I would say I probably gained roughly 10 kilos of muscle. Where do I start from gaining mass? You start from lifting weights. I've only 1.5 hours to work out, and I'm a weightlifter. Efficient warm-up protocol. Again, I did a video on warm-ups. I would say get a general warm-up to just get the body moving, and then do a specific warm-up with the actual movement, and maybe add in 1 or 2 special exercises that might work on a weakness. So if you have rotator cuff issues, face pulls. If you have lower back issues, pull-off presses or back extensions, just something that you find helps to activate the correct muscles that you need to use. I just want to say that you are the best. Oh, thank you. Can I start and be a sponsored athlete at 28 years old? I was a great athlete in high school. So actually, I don't know much about sponsorship. I'm not sponsored. I support myself through coaching. So I wish I could help with that question, but I really don't know the specific details. I think a lot of it is going to have to do with your social media following as much as your actual capabilities. All right, the next one. Why did you go to Shenzhen instead of your wife going to the US in the first place? I was actually already in Shenzhen. I've been here for 9 years, and I've known her a little bit over 2 years. So I was already here. I've met some people who they met their wife online, and they were in the US, and then they moved to China. But that's pretty rare. I would say most people who get married to a Chinese person here, they were already here and they met them here. So, and we don't really have any plans to go back to the U.S. We're happy here, and honestly, the quality of life here is going to be better than the U.S. What do you do for a living? I am an online coach, and I write training plans. So that's how I support myself. That is how I make the vast majority of my money and how I put bread on the table. If you don't start rapping more in your vids, I'ma unsub. Okay, I can't promise anything. I actually got surprisingly good feedback on my rapping. I sort of just did it as a joke, but I guess I could do another rap video if that makes people happy. Intermittent fasting and which foods to eat. Your diet shouldn't change that much just because you're not eating part of the day. So just focus on whole foods, healthy foods. And, intermittent fasting isn't an excuse to eat whatever you want or eat junk. You still have to eat healthy if you want to be healthy. Tips for lean bulking. Find a slight caloric surplus. So find whatever makes you gain weight at like half a kilo per month and just stick to that range. Don't be too strict with the calories, but give yourself a range, but don't go super high, don't go super low. Just find whatever is barely above your maintaining body weight number. And this can be tricky. It takes some practice. Do you consider kettlebell swings to be reasonably effective for posterior chain hypertrophy? I don't have any personal experience with them. My gym might have like 10 kilo kettlebells, which is just going to be a joke. I would say they're not going to be nearly as good as, back extensions, RDLs, deadlifts, etc. for hypertrophy. They're more of a dynamic, explosive exercise or cardio. They're not really going to be for hypertrophy, although you might notice some hamstring gains. Still home quarantined over here in India. How do I make home workouts better? That's really general. It depends what you have. I would say just buying a squat rack, barbell, power rack. That is going to be the best way to give yourself the movements that can truly overload the body. With just body weight, you can probably maintain and gain for your upper body, but for lower body, it's going to be pretty tricky. What are your thoughts on doing full body workouts daily? Something from Pavel Satsulini. So, I think this is good phased in occasionally if you're more advanced. So if you're more advanced, doing something like 4 or 5, 6 full body workouts per week, I think it's doable because you have the recovery capacity to actually recover. But if you're a beginner, that'll just destroy you. And if it doesn't destroy you, you're probably not actually stimulating muscle protein synthesis, because if you were, you'd be getting super sore and you wouldn't be able to recover to do it every day. I think, for advanced athletes, doing this occasionally, like a few weeks at a time, can be really good, but you probably can't do it all the time because it's very easy to get overtrained, overworked, and burnt out. Hey, should the calories of spices be tracked when counting calories? Indian food has spices. I think generally speaking, you're going to use very, very low volumes of spices, and so they shouldn't have a huge impact, but I could be wrong. All right, the next question. What made you want to move to China to teach English, and why did you switch to coaching? So I graduated from university in 2011, and I figured, I'll go to a new country, I'll move abroad and just see what it's like. And I wasn't really a teacher. I graduated with a degree in economics, and this program sort of just took anyone. They're just, you don't need experience, you don't need like a degree in English or teaching or anything. Just if you have a pulse, you can come here and teach little Chinese kids. And so, I figured I'd do that for a year, see how it is. And then 1 year turned into 2, and that turned into 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and then even part of a 7th year. And I liked it. And that's really dangerous. If you like your job, but you don't really love it, that can be really dangerous. If you hate your job, it's easy to quit. But if you like it, but it's not really right for you, that is really, really difficult, because you get into this thought of like, oh, it's an easy job, I like it, it's very comfortable, but I wasn't really growing, I wasn't really learning, I wasn't really getting better. I found myself just feeling like a robot. Every year, the same lessons, the same questions, different school, but like everything was almost the same, and I wasn't really developing as a person, and I wasn't really satisfied. So in 2017, late 2017, I switched to the blockchain industry, which I'll talk about a little bit later. There's another question on it. And then I switched to coaching. I actually got a lot of questions in the gym when I started getting a little bit bigger. People would ask me like, oh, how do you develop your shoulders? How do you set up a training plan? And I got these questions so much that I just wrote all my answers out in a Word document. And when people ask me, I would just be like, oh, give me your WeChat, which is the Chinese super app you can do anything with, and I'll send you this free book. And it was basically just to save time, because I was getting these questions so much, I could just send them this document and it would make my life easier. It wasn't even about them, honestly. It was partly about them, but mostly about just me being lazy and not wanting to answer all these questions. Then I started writing training plans for people. Someone asked me like, oh, can you write me a training plan? And, so I just did it. I didn't even think about charging for it. I was just like, oh, this is a fun challenge. I'll see, their stats and their goals, and then I'll write a training plan. This is going to be fun. And I wrote 100 training plans for free. People would recommend their friends, and then, they knew it was for free, and so people are happy to recommend their friends for something for free. It wasn't, paid at all. And so I kept doing that until I reached 100 training plans. So yeah, I worked I worked a lot for free. And then eventually people started paying me for the plans. They realized like, oh wow, this is really good, this is really detailed. Like how the fuck is this for free? And that got me thinking like, okay, well, maybe I'm onto something. And I started, charging for my book, and I started charging for my coaching and for the training plans. And people even still, they say like, oh my god, your prices are so cheap. And to me, I'm still comparing it to when they were free. So even just charging a little bit for me, even if I have to work a lot, to me, it doesn't seem super expensive because I'm still comparing it to zero. And then I started writing on Quora, and then I put my book on Amazon, and then stuff has sort of just snowballed from there. And I've had to raise my prices a few more times, and I'll definitely have to raise them more in the future as demand keeps growing and people still say my prices are too low. All right, next question. As a beginner who does their research, are there any common issues that might still trip me up? That's a tricky one. I would say relying on research too much. So I would classify myself as a loosely science-based, evidence-based coach, but there are certainly times when you have to throw the research out the window. If you find something that works for you or works for a client, and there's no scientific data to back it up, that doesn't mean it's wrong. So if you're a beginner who is doing a lot of research and something works for you, but you don't find any evidence for it, that doesn't mean you should stop doing it. So you still have to train somewhat intuitively and sort of combine intuition with evidence, and that is going to get you optimal results. All right, another question from Kevy. What is your rest schedule like? I don't really take days off typically. I don't plan days off. If I have to take a day off because I'm really busy or because something comes up, then I'll just take a day off. But I don't plan my days off typically. When life throws me a day off, I'll take a day off. Best upper body exercise that doesn't use a barbell. Dumbbell bench press, dumbbell rows, dumbbell overhead press, pull-ups, dips. Yeah, there's lots of stuff you can do that doesn't have a barbell. Basically dumbbell work and then body weight stuff like dips and pull-ups. I can currently do 5 pull-ups in a row. What's the best way to improve on it? Do more pull-ups. I know that seems very simple, very trite, but it's true. If you do more pull-ups, you'll get better at pull-ups. So do them a few times per day. Yes, per day, and you'll get better. So this is the greasing the groove type of thing. Pavel was mentioned before. He's one of the main proliferators of this manner of thought. Basically, get a pull-up bar, put it in your house, and do 2 or 3 reps a lot of times per day. You might be sore at first, but you won't be sore later. Your lats will grow, your lower traps will grow, your arms will grow, and you're just going to get better at pull-ups. The other way would just be losing fat. If you're above 20% body fat, you're probably not going to be very good at pull-ups. And the fastest and easiest way is going to be just to lose body fat through a better diet. Does natural body hair somewhat correlate with higher hormone levels and thus higher strength? I haven't seen any evidence on this, but I think it makes sense. If you put a female on testosterone, they start to grow body hair. So it makes sense that those two are correlated. Please do a video on deadlifts. You got it. Please monetize your videos. Your content is worth it. A video on breathing patterns, please. I might monetize again in the future, but as of right now, it's not really worth it, to be perfectly honest. $80 a month isn't horrible, but it's also not going to be any kind of significant amount compared to my other work. And I will definitely do a video on bracing. I think it's very, very important. All right, last one. Not fitness related, but curious about your blockchain company you worked for and your role there. Yeah, so at this point I was trying to get out of teaching, and I saw an advertisement for a job in the blockchain industry. And so I go to High Tech Park here in Shenzhen, and I meet with the boss, and I've always been able to read people pretty well, and I could tell he was just like a huge egomaniac, a huge narcissist. I could tell he was going to be a terrible boss, and I was right. But I didn't really care because I just wanted to get out of teaching. I wanted to do something new, and so I decided to take the job. And the job didn't really have a set job description. It was basically whatever you need to do to help the company, just do it. So it was like marketing, sales, writing, proofreading, copywriting, editing, translation, even like human resources. It was like everything, anything and everything I had to do. And I was working basically from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. some nights. And, it was really tough, but, I was just so happy and excited to having, be having like a real job, It was a lot different than teaching, and I could feel myself, learning a lot. And then eventually the company went under through absolutely no fault of my own, through a lot of bad decisions, which I should probably not go into detail about. But, I don't regret the decision, even if it didn't end very well. So let me know if you have any questions for next time in the comments below. I think this is a good way to satisfy your needs, and I think they're fun to do as well. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all next time. Peace!